Hello everyone! Welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video, I am going to be talking about some eyeshadow palettes, specifically eyeshadow palettes that I only own one from the brand. For one reason or another, we're going to get into it today. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love it if you stuck around, but with all that, let's just get into these palettes. All right, this video idea did not come from me. I remember seeing it around somewhere. I believe they called them one-hit wonders. If I can figure out who started this type of video, I will have them linked down in the description box below and give credit where credit is due, but I know I didn't come up with this idea. I went through my entire palette collection, and I'm looking at them all right now because there's 28 palettes here, and picked out all the palettes where I only owned one from the brand. And there could be many reasons why I only own one from the brand. We're going to talk about all of them just so I don't have to repeat myself. I'm just trying to mentally figure out how I want to go about this video. I'm kind of thinking the way that I'm going to do it is talk about all the palettes that I've actually tried, because I do have quite a few palettes that are in my pile of shame, which are palettes that I haven't opened and haven't touched and haven't used. So I think that makes the most sense to split it that way. And since we have 28 palettes, I think we should just get started so this video isn't too long. The first couple of palettes that I have, some of these small ones we can just get out of the way, is my Melt Petite Pro Neutral Stack. So this is just a little 5 shadow stack of 4 mattes, 1 shimmer. I think this is excellent. I have recommended this little stack time and time again. Now this is my only melt palette, and the reason for that honestly is because I used to have other melt palettes and I've just decluttered them all over the years. I just didn't really need them in my collection, didn't want them. This is the only one that's kind of served me, and I'm happy only having this one. Melt's color stories also don't usually gravitate towards me, is kind of what I've come to accept about myself. I think I purchased a lot of those palettes for the hype, and when push came to shove, I just never reached for them. The next palette I have to talk about is from Surratt. This is the Beautylish palette, and Surratt is like a luxury brand. This palette was over $100 for a quad here, and that's why I only own one, because it is quite expensive and I just don't want to spend the money anymore on luxury palettes, especially when the only other one that I would want from them is very similar to this. It's just a little quad of neutrals. I have enough eyeshadow palettes in my collection where I don't need to be spending $100 on a quad, and that's why I only have one Surratt. But I'm glad I got to try the formula. I'm glad that I have this palette. Next one is a little Rowan quad. This is the 1111 quad, and this is the only Rowan quad that I have because just like Melt, I decluttered my other Rowan quads. I actually did that quite recently. I will link my eyeshadow declutter up above. I had these 35 degrees, I think, and the Gold Rush, Gold Lust, the gold one, and then like a cool tone one. And the 1111 is the only one that I liked and could see myself getting use out of, so I decluttered the others. And then my next one is a MAC palette. This is actually new to my collection. This is the Embedded in Burgundy. I quite like this palette, and I had a really nice time using it. I have used it this year, so I've already used it no pan left behind because I am trying to use all my eyeshadow palettes. MAC doesn't come out that much with palettes, I feel like. Well, I think maybe now they do more so, but I just haven't purchased from MAC in so long. Before, they were really well known for their singles, and you would purchase the singles, kind of make your own palette. So that's why I just never really had like a full MAC palette. I have other MAC singles, just not a full palette, and I have nothing bad against the formula, but again, it's kind of mostly for them, just neutrals, and I already have so many neutrals that I don't need to purchase another MAC palette. I don't think their formula is that spectacular. A couple more small ones here, just to make sure I don't skip any, even though it's not that big of a deal, is a Lorac palette. So this is the Sparkling palette. It's a mini pro palette, And this is so beautiful. I love this so much. And this just falls into the same category of I've had other Lorac palettes and I've just decluttered them because they were unopened in my collection. I wasn't getting use out of them, and I was trying to just lower the amount of eyeshadow palettes that I have in my collection. I still have over 200 palettes, so I still have quite a few palettes around, and I just needed to make some hard choices. I would have loved to keep those Lorac palettes, quite honestly, but I just felt they could have gone to another home. Since I already tried this one and loved this one, that's why this one stayed, and honestly, I think Lorac has a fantastic formula. Tom Ford, another quad where I just decluttered the other ones in my collection. This is Nude Dip. I had, oops, oh my gosh. I thought the little brush was gonna fall out. This shade just completely fell out of the pan in real time. So it didn't break. Here it is. I don't want it to break, but now I don't know if I'm gonna keep this palette. Well, I don't know. Okay, so this is Nude Dip. And it's the only one I really loved. I'm gonna try to repress that in, but we'll just kind of hold it like this, I guess. I just think the Tom Ford shadow formula is overhyped. There's other luxury eyeshadows that I would recommend over Tom Ford for less money. I really enjoy YSL as a luxury eyeshadow brand formula. $90 for this, just not worth it. Like, I'm over it. Those are all my really small palettes, like my five pans, 4 pans, etc. Now I'm just going to start in my pile, no particular order. Kiko Milano. This is the Sweet Affairs Guilty Pleasure eyeshadow palette. This was a holiday launch, and it's 8 baked formulas. I love this eyeshadow palette for one and done looks. Really, really pretty. I just haven't purchased any other Kiko Milano palettes because there's other things that just took priority. Indie brands mostly kind of catch my attention, so this is the only one that I've purchased. I think that this is a nice formula, but I also don't see them come out with baked palettes anymore. Then I have a Makeup by Mario. This one I have used No Pan Left Behind. I really enjoy this palette. This is the Ethereal Eyes Moonlight palette, the one they came out with for holiday. This is so, so pretty. I tried and I tried and I tried to resist this palette, but I ended up caving. I swatched it in person, and that's what made me crack and buy this. The shimmer shades are so pretty. They're like that ethereal topper shade. The mattes are really buildable, blendable, and it's a really nice palette. I can see why so many people were talking about it. I do plan on purchasing other Makeup by Mario palettes. I just haven't gotten around to it, and that's why I only own one. Next in my pile is Persona. This is the original Identity palette. They've reformulated this into like plastic packaging, but I just have my cardboard one. Really great neutral palette. I think I've actually talked about this in like my top 5 favorite neutral palettes. I just think this has everything. Very similar to like the Tartelette in Bloom palette, but also a little bit different. You have more darker shades in this. I think this is more well-rounded it's more inclusive with its shade range than the Tartelette in Bloom, but formula really nice. This still works amazing for its age, and I think it's great. I just never purchased any other Persona palettes because I think they only came out with like the Identity 2 palette that I've seen, and that had like this gold shade in it and like a green shade. I just remember not liking that color story, which is why I didn't pick it up and why I don't own anything else from Persona. Then I have a Linda Hallberg Cosmetics palette. This is the Smoke It Out palette, which was a collaboration with someone, but it doesn't say on the palette here. This is a 9 pan. It's quite small for being a 9 pan. I thought it was going to be a little bit bigger. I've had Linda Hallberg on my list to try for quite some time, and when I saw this palette, this is the palette that I wanted to try. It's a great formula. The thing is, this palette's like $45, and I think it's a little bit overpriced. I think it would have been better in like the $35 range. I do want to pick up other palettes from Linda Hallberg. I just haven't gotten around to it. Again, like other things kind of catch my attention. Nothing really like super stands out to me. There are times during holiday I've seen these 9 pans be buy one, get one free, and that's probably when I'll pull the trigger and purchase some other ones. I'm just waiting for a sale and waiting to like have an extra budget. That's really about it for this, but I definitely recommend this formula. I think this is really nice. Juvia's Place is my next one. This is the Garden of Juvia's palette. I purchased this on the recommendation of DW from Dove's Beauty Diary. I'll have her channel listed down below. This is one of her favorite pastel palettes, and I have to agree, it is the best pastel palette that I have in my collection. The shimmers are fantastic. The mattes are really beautiful. I think this is really, really nice. I had some other Juvia's Place palettes, but I did declutter them. I think I only had like their little 6 pans, and it just didn't stand out to me as being something I had to have, so I ended up decluttering them. This is a have to have. I like having this in my collection. It could very well be my only pastel palette, and I would be fine having this be my only pastel palette. Their other palettes, though, just don't really intrigue me as much, where I have to have them. I also don't love that they have like really gigantic pan sizes, and that also deters me from purchasing them because I'll never even finish a small pan of eyeshadow, let alone a large pan of eyeshadow. The next one I have is from Laura Geller. It is the Wheel of Fortune palette. Do we remember when this palette came out? I had to have it. I love Wheel of Fortune. It's very nostalgic for me. My mom used to watch Wheel of Fortune when I was a young child. English is not her first language. She moved to America from France, so she used to watch Wheel of Fortune to help her with her English, also because people couldn't understand her accent when she spoke, so she would have to spell out words a lot, and that's why she used to watch Wheel of Fortune. And of course, she watched it for Vana. So I had to get this, and I love it. I think it's a great palette. I just don't see Laura Geller as like my favorite brand. When I purchased this palette, I picked up other products from them like blushes and bronzers, and they didn't wow me. While they can have like really good products, they just don't have like the best formula. And there's just other things I'd rather spend my money on, but this was a really good one. And not only is it nostalgic to me, but the formula is really nice. Now we have some indie. Is this the first indie palette that I'm talking about? I think so. This is the MBA Cosmetics Wandering Soul palette. I have had MBA Cosmetics on my list to try, and the Wandering Soul just really caught my eye. I thought it was really beautiful. I do love the color story. It's warm without being too warm, plus you have these teals. To be fair, this is not like my favorite indie palette. I don't like these kind of row of metallic shimmers, almost like a satin. I do like these like more textured shimmers in an indie brand. So when I'm spending the money on indie, I like for it to have like more of a special indie formula, not a formula I could get from a mainstream brand. But it wouldn't deter me from buying from MBA Cosmetics in the future. There just haven't been too many palettes from them where I'm like, you know, it gets me in the gut and I just have to have that palette. And being that I'm trying to be a little bit more conscientious on the palettes I'm bringing into my collection, that's why I just only have one from them. But I do like this one. It's very nice, and I had fun playing with it. Next up is from Kevyn Aucoin. This is the Nude Pop palette, very old palette. A palette that got away from a lot of people. I'm glad that I was able to snag it before it got discontinued. I love this palette so, so much. The reason why I only have one Kevyn Aucoin palette is like, I don't even know if they have other eyeshadow palettes. I'm actually even surprised that Kevyn Aucoin is still in business, to be quite honest. I don't know if they're like hanging on by a thread or if there's some secret underground organization that purchases all their things, but I don't hear a lot of people talk about them. This is a really nice palette. Can't recommend it enough. You can't get it anymore, so I'm not going to dwell on it, but I do really, really enjoy this palette, and I like having it. Next up is Artist Couture, the Supreme Nudes. I love this palette. Fell in love with it. I think I used this palette for the first time in a video a long, long time ago, and I loved the look, and I've loved every single look since. This also, I think with that Persona palette, made my top 5 favorite neutral palettes. This is beautiful. You just have the perfect, like here, you have the perfect grounding shades. You can do an all matte look, which is what I believe I did in that video. The shimmers are really special. They're not like super multi-chrome, special, flippy shimmers, textured, anything like that. They're just like solid, good shimmers, and I really, really enjoy them. Definitely a fall palette that I'll be reaching into coming up here, but also just a great staple year-round palette. Another indie brand that I have, I think this is my last indie brand to talk about, Indie brands I tend to purchase quite a few from, only because a lot of the times you have to pay for shipping. It's not free shipping. So I feel like, okay, well, if I'm going to pay for shipping, I might as well pick up more than one. That's kind of on my list. But I do have the Gourmand Girls Peach Perfect palette. And it looks like this. I recently used this No Pan Left Behind. I loved it and hated it. I didn't love my looks, but also I think that because I was trying to use this No Pan Left Behind, I maybe just went overboard with the amount of shades that I was using. I really like this Papa Don't Peach shade. I like the color story. This is just one where, like, for me personally, I only want to use 2 or 3 shades for max for a look, and I feel like it's a little bit more restricting than I initially thought. So I do want the Mocha Mousse palette from Gourmand Girls, and that is kind of a little bit higher up on my list to purchase. I will probably pick that up around Black Friday, and then this will no longer be one of my one-hit wonders. Now we have, I guess this is technically indie, we have the Tiny Marvels palette from Sydney Grace. This was in collaboration with Mel Thompson. A really pretty kind of spring palette, but also could be used all year round. I really enjoy this. Sydney Grace palettes, I've had some in the past, but I've also just kind of decluttered them. They were really, really great formula. It just kind of came down to what am I using versus what am I not using? What can I pass along that can maybe not sit in a drawer and actually get use? So those other ones got the axe, but I would never, ever, ever let go of this palette. I just love it so much. I'm a huge fan of Mel Thompson. If you are subscribed to my channel, you probably know that by now. So I just couldn't get rid of this, and I do really enjoy this palette. If you like Sydney Grace and there's another palette from them that you've kind of been eyeing, I definitely recommend picking it up. They have an excellent formula. I have 2 more palettes to talk about that are part of my palettes that I've used and tried. The next one is from Essence, and this is the Salut Paris eyeshadow palette. This palette surprised me. Purchased it for the Palace theming, kept it because it actually is like a nice palette. It's cute, it's pretty, it's quaint. I mean, it just is like a good, easy go-to palette, and I like having it. I was very surprised when I finally used this palette on how nice it was. I do think it's geared more towards lighter skin tones. Deeper skin tones I think would have a little bit of trouble having the pigment show up on them, but for me it works fine and I actually quite like it. But Essence isn't really, it's not a brand I avoid. It's just not a brand I pick up a lot from unless like the theming really gets me. And then the very last palette I have to talk about is from Zoeva. This is the Melody palette, and it is really pretty. There was a time I remember Zoeva being talked about so much online, like way in the beginning of the start of beauty YouTube. Everyone was talking about Zoeva. I never picked up their palettes because they were too expensive for me at the time. And I did finally pick up the Melody palette, and when I used it, I could see what everyone's talking about. I do think this is a little bit of a aged formula now. Like, it's not a trendy formula. It's still a very reliable formula. It still would work, but I do think it's a little bit outdated now. Still really like it because it has neutrals. It has a pop of purple. There's no reason for me to get rid of this palette. I like it enough to keep in my collection, and that's why it stays. But those are all of my palettes where I've actually used them. Now we have a little bit of a small pile, a large pile of palettes that are from my pile of shame. So let's go over those. I think, again, we'll just start from the top, not go in any particular order, just how I pulled them, how I'm reaching for them, and how they got put in this stack here. So the first one that I have is the Terra Moon Cosmetics. This is the Lovers of the Sun palette, and I don't have a good reason for why I haven't used this yet. I mean, I'm probably going to say that about every single palette, other than just there's so many palettes I haven't used yet that it becomes hard to pick and choose which palette you're going to use, plus use the ones that you've already used. So it's a very hard balancing act that I have not perfected yet. I'm very much looking forward to using this. I remember when this first launched, I was taken aback by how beautiful it looked. The swatches look beautiful. I don't want to swatch too much, but like, what is this called? Sunset Embrace. Like, how could you like not say yes to just this shade? It was quite an expensive palette. I remember that. So I really need to get a move on and use this because I don't want it to go to waste. It looks just so delicious. Next is probably one of the oldest palettes in this pile. It's the Marc Jacobs. This is the iconic palette in Stiletto. I mean, Marc Jacobs isn't even a brand anymore. And at this point, not only are they not a brand anymore, they've hinted at relaunching, and then they haven't even done that yet. So that's how old this palette is. For some reason, if I can get it out of the box, I haven't gotten around to using it. I think it just intimidates me a little bit because it is quite cool toned. It is very, very cool toned. It's not even just like leaning cool toned. Like this is the epitome of cool toned. So I think that's part of why I just haven't reached for it, along with just the balancing act that I've referenced already. But it is very pretty. I haven't been able to get myself to declutter this palette. I've had other Marc Jacobs palettes that I have decluttered, but this one, I remember looking so forward to getting this, and then it just sat in there. So I am determined to at least try this one time before I decide to declutter it or keep it so it stays. Next is an indie brand. This is Electrum Cosmetics Midnight Moth. The thing with this palette is I was so looking forward to using this, my first palette from Electrum Cosmetics. So I really wanted to try their formula, but this was a pre-order and it just took a really, really long time to get to me. I think like 4 months, and it had nothing to do with the brand. I think the brand owner got sick. She sent out emails saying that pre-orders were going to be delayed. I don't mind the time that it took, but also by the time I got this palette, I just wasn't as excited to use it. This is definitely kind of like a fall color story. I think maybe fall had passed. It was winter time, so I didn't prioritize it. Now that it's fall again, I definitely need to. This kind of reminds me of the Laminatrix Nocturnal palette a little bit, like with these 3 mattes. So we'll just see. I also have that Nocturnal palette in my pile of shame, so I need to use that. I can maybe compare the two and see which one has a better formula, but I am very excited to use this one. Like indie brands, I definitely prioritize, just haven't gotten around to it. All right, a couple more palettes left. We have the NARS Climax palette. This was actually decluttered to me because I had it in a video where I talked about 5 palettes that I felt like I missed out on, and the Climax was on it. So someone had one that brand new and they hadn't used it, so they so kindly gifted it to me. And I'm very excited to use this. Again, I think because I got this in summertime, I was just waiting for it to be a little bit more seasonally appropriate. I definitely plan on using this. I couldn't believe that I got sent this palette, and I now have this palette when it was limited edition, so very excited to use it, but one I need to prioritize. Next palette in my pile is from M Cosmetics. This is the Rodin palette, and in my recent declutter, I actually had 2 palettes from M Cosmetics, and I decluttered one and I kept this one. This one was a little bit more neutral. I believe I decluttered the Divine Sky, which was a lot warmer of a color story, not necessarily what I reach for on the everyday. So I decided to keep the neutral one just so I could kind of test out the formula. I would really like the Saturn Retrograde palette, which is kind of like their cool tone color story. But honestly, I think that M Cosmetics palettes are a little bit overpriced for what they are, so I don't plan on picking up any in the near time future. So this will probably stay a one-hit wonder for quite some time. And then I have a palette from Stila. I purchased this on the recommendation of Smoky Glow. And in my eyeshadow palette declutter, I did consider decluttering this palette because I've had it for so long and haven't used it. And then I opened it and just knew I couldn't. This palette is so beautiful. It's so heavy. It feels like a Mothership palette. That's how heavy it is. It's just gold instead of black. And the shades look beautiful. I just can't get myself to declutter it. So just like the Marc Jacobs, I want to try it out before I decide to see how the formula is. If I try it one time, don't like the formula, it's fine. I can still find a friend to declutter it to. I'm not too worried about it. But I have to try this palette and know what it's about before I declutter it. I think it's really pretty, and it's a shame that I haven't pulled this one out yet. But as the palettes get older and older, my desire to use them, or my priority to use them, goes down because newer palettes came in and I'm trying to use those instead. Like this Wicked Widow Beauty. I purchased this last Valentine's Day. I'm not sure when, but I haven't used this yet because I was gone for Valentine's Day, so I kind of missed the mark. I will hopefully use it by next Valentine's Day, or else I feel like I'll miss my chance again. I don't know why I'm waiting for Valentine's Day. I'd like to tell you that I will use it outside of Valentine's Day, but I just know myself. I am kind of a seasonal wearer. I know you don't have to be, but I kind of just am. And at this point, I have so many palettes, I might as well just go with it. Really pretty. Heard really nice things about this palette. Just haven't used it yet. One of the newer palettes in my collection, actually in this pile, I believe this is the newest, is the Fantasy Cosmetica Cradled in Ice palette. I know this palette's not new, but I heard Fantasy Cosmetica was going to discontinue this palette, so I decided to pick it up because I haven't tried the brand yet. And the problem with Fantasy Cosmetica is I want all of their palettes. So I've almost just not pulled the trigger purchasing from them because I want all their palettes and I can't decide which one to get. But I didn't want to have FOMO over this. So many people spoke very highly of this palette, so I did pick it up. And this is a good winter palette, so I do think that I will use this one sooner rather than later. And I'm excited to see what everyone is talking about when they talk about how great Fantasy Cosmetica is. And then hopefully I'll be able to narrow down my list of which ones I want to purchase from them. I definitely want the Harvest of Souls. After that, their 9 pans is a little bit tough. I think I want the Rogue or the Druid. I can't remember off the top of my head. But there's just a lot that I want from Fantasy Cosmetica, and I anticipate this won't stay a one palette brand for very long. And then my very last palette to talk about is the Lunar Beauty Greek Goddess palette. How old is this palette? I don't even want to know. Don't tell me. Do not tell me in the comments how old this palette is. This was like Manny NUA's second palette because Life's a Drag came out first. I haven't been able to declutter this. I owned quite a few other Lunar Beauty palettes. Like I owned Moonspell 1 and 2. I ended up decluttering them because while I loved the theming of them, they weren't color stories I was going to use. I like the color story of this because it's neutral with a pop of blue. I mean, it's not the most ingenious color story around, but I also love the theming. I love Greek mythology. I love the Medusa on the front. I actually I had the same teacher from 3rd to 6th grade because I went to a very, very small school. I went to a Montessori school and there was 30 kids in like my class block, and that included kids from 3rd to 6th grade. Like you just stayed in that group. So very small school. And she was from England. I remember her distinctly, and she loved literature. Like we were reading Shakespeare at 11 years old, 12 years old, and we read Beowulf when I was in her, I don't remember which grade. I was probably like in 5th grade or so when we read Beowulf. So if you didn't know, Medusa comes from that book, and it just brought back memories of that. So I keep this palette because of it. I can't let it go, yet I haven't been able to make myself use this palette, and I don't know why. Probably because I don't want it to be a terrible formula and then feel like I'm only keeping it for the packaging. Right now, like ignorance is bliss. And until then, I just can't break it. But it reminds me of that time in my life, and while I loved her as a teacher, she was a very great teacher, she also had her flaws because as much as she loved literature, she did not like math. And I didn't learn how to do long division until 7th grade when I finally left her class. So there were pros and cons to having her as a teacher, but this palette does remind me of that time. And I very much liked having her as a teacher. She's shaped a lot of who I am as a person, I think. But that was a whole nother tangent. These are all 28 palettes where I only own one palette from the brand. I would love to know your thoughts down below. Like, do you have a lot of palettes from different brands? You like to go around and try different brands, try different formulas, or are you kind of a loyalist where you stick to the same couple of brands and really just collect those types of palettes from that brand because you know the formula, you like the formula? I would say for the most part, I fall in that latter category, but I still am always down to try like a new formula, try other brands and see how they are, especially if they get a lot of talk like Fantasy Cosmetica. So There are some that I keep around, and there's some, I think a majority of the ones I have in here, I did own multiple palettes from. I just decluttered over the years because I didn't like them as much, and they were the ones that kind of just like stuck around, which I think is actually not a bad thing. I think that's, in an ideal world, like the best possible outcome, because I'm only keeping the ones that I like from that brand and not just like collecting them all, so to say. But I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. After that though, this is the end of the video. I hope you're having a great one, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.